The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So it looks like this morning we have 632 registered attendees. If you know anyone that would like to attend today's webinar, I have put the webinar's webpage in the chat, and you can register for today's webinar or register for any of our upcoming webinars. Just give it maybe about 1 more minute for everyone to come in. Okay, I think we're at about critical mass. So welcome everybody to the NPC Compliance Webinar brought to you by the Department of Healthcare Access and Information, otherwise known as HCI. You may download the handout for today's presentation in the Go To panel under the Handouts section. We're scheduled to be here for 2 hours today, and we will have a short 5-minute break at approximately 11 o'clock. We have a lot of information to cover, so we will not have time for question and answer session during the webinar. But if you have any questions during the presentation, please email them to seismiccomplianceunit@hci.ca.gov. That's Seismic Compliance Unit at hcai.ca.gov. If you experience any transmission difficulties during the presentation, please log out and log back in using the login information that was sent to you by GoTo when you registered for the presentation. Today's presenter is Ollie Sumer. He is the supervisor of the Seismic Compliance Unit. Once again, thank you all for joining us today, and I'll now hand the presentation over to Ollie.
Thank you, Kelly. Good morning. So we have a lot to cover today. I'd like to first start with thanking all the members who put together this presentation. I'm the presenter, but truly this was done by many people. I'd like to thank Kelly Zimmer, Kamal Kalsi, Patrick Rogers, Alireza Asghari, Hussein Darama, Simrit Palma, Shane Gross, Jake Stepp, Roy Lobo, and many others. All right. With that, let me go to the next slide. So for those of you who are following the webinar series, we are on the third item. Back in February, if you haven't seen it, please go to Small and Rural Hospital Relief Program, Seismic Grant. The slides and the recorded webinar is on our website. And the one previous, before this presentation, Seismic Compliance Plan, which applies to all facilities and delays beyond the 2030 deadline, which applies to AB 869 applicants. Today's NPC Compliance, it applies to all. Next week, Kamal actually will give this presentation, Water Rationing Plan, which is NPC 5 related. And last but not the least, we're going to cover the SPC compliance in a couple weeks. All right, I'll talk about the outline so that you will have an idea about what I'm going to cover today. I'll give some background on the NPC, but I highly recommend to go back to the past webinar, which we did 2 years ago, which went into a lot of details of MPC 3, 4, 4D, and 5. So this webinar is actually adding on top of it. So there's a lot of new materials, not new requirements. It's just more information about the MPC. I'll go through the current inventory. I'll talk about the MPC deadlines and how to report those compliance with those deadlines. And we'll introduce the summary pages that we have been commenting on a lot lately. And the NPC 5. NPC 5, I am not going to cover here. So if you are here for NPC 5 only, that will be only very little thing. So I recommend you to attend the next webinar. I'll cover lots of frequently asked questions. And all the questions that you're gonna see, we publish them on our website. We continue to publish them. So this is kind of a go-to place. So this link on the handout should be an active link. So when you click on it, it should take you there. The last item will be A13 MPC upgrade construction guide. So this is new, well, new-ish. So it's like almost 3 months since we published this. I'll go over this in more detail. Okay, so just again, starting with the Seismic Safety Act. This is what basically is the background of everything. So we are trying to prepare the hospitals and designing and constructing to resist, insofar as practical, the forces generated by earthquake, gravity, and winds. So the NPC aspect truly focuses on the most critical non-structural systems and prioritize timeframes for upgrading those systems that represent the greatest risk of failure during an earthquake. When we talk about NPC, we talk about functionality, but functionality really has three aspects. One is structural, which we call beams, columns, shear walls, slabs, foundation, the skeleton of the building. The rating that we use for that is SPC, or Structural Performance Category. Non-structural, so other things in the building, which are partitions, ceiling, cladding, equipment, pipes, furnishing, contents, elevators, stairs, many things, we call that non-structural. And the rating for that non-structural is NPC. And of course, functionality, staff makes everything happen. So what we are trying to do here is to give doctors and nurses all the tools that they need so that they do their miracle every day. So the non-structural, the importance of non-structural systems, there's nothing new, but again, in the latest earthquake in Turkey, it showed a renewed, again, emphasis on the non-structural systems that should be tied, braced, and thought about throughout the building to provide healthcare services after an event. So the rating system that I mentioned on the previous slide about NPC, we have 6 categories. So I'm not going to go through this table, but basically 1 is the worst, 5 is the best, and there are steps in between, and we're going to go through more towards MPC 4D and 4 today. And if you want to know more about MPC 3, again, I would go back to the seminar 2 years ago so that you will get more information and the handouts. Excuse me. I showed this sketch pretty much on all MPC presentations. Again, this is a super simplified example. So let's say this is your hospital building with lots of functions in it. admin space, med surg beds, radiology, so on and so forth. So all of these things do work because of utilities, electric, gas, water, oxygen, so on and so forth. So they are all tied together. So there is a network of systems within the building, between buildings, and outside. So as a starting point to this building, our starting point is MPC1, meaning that either nothing is braced or nothing was looked at or evaluated. If certain evacuation systems generally are looked at, which is pretty much the scope of MPC2, bulk oxygen, fire alarm panel, some emergency generator anchorage, exit signs, some communication, very, very little, the building and the facility gets MPC2 rating. MPC3 or MPC4D level 1 looks at some critical care areas, such as ICU or radiology, which we call MPC3 areas. Within those boundaries, within the walls of the area, things are braced. So you see that pipe, there will be a bunch of brace here, bunch of brace here, but right outside of it, there's no brace required. So in an earthquake, obviously, this utility line, if it breaks here, it won't function here. So MPC3 or MPC4D level 1 does not target functionality in those spaces. It basically targets to tie everything around the patients so that it doesn't fall on them, so that they can basically leave that space safely. So MPC level 4D level 2 and 3, which I will talk about, it looks more about the functionality through bracing all the way to the source. MPC4 is actually a holistic all building systems and utilities. So most of our newer buildings get MPC4, or the MPC to upgrade to 4 looks at all the braces and equipment, or utilities and equipment, and bracing all those so that it gets MPC4. MPC5 is not about anchorage. MPC5 basically sits on top of the umbrella of all MPCs. So in order to get MPC5, the building has to be MPC4D or MPC4, and to have water, fuel, and sewer tank to accommodate 72 hours of operation. So that's kind of in a nutshell of our rating system. As I mentioned, in the last year, while we received a few thousand evaluation reports, we looked at them, we reviewed them all, commented, sent it back. So we are caught up. We may have maybe 17 or 18 back check pretty steadily, but if you haven't received a comment from us, talk to us, because you should have received all the evaluation report comments by now. One common thing about that one is when we send the comments out, if the contact is no longer there in the facility, there might be some break in the communication. So, but you can always log into your project and see where the comments are and when that was made. So I'll focus on 4D and 4 mostly on this presentation. So for those of you who are, again, not quite familiar with 4D, the requirements are set in California Administrative Code, and you can see the details, the requirements, and all that. So as I mentioned, MPC4D is basically MPC3 with some levels in it, levels 1 through 3, 1, 2, 3, and it's all about bracing and anchorage. So on top of that, since the whole building is not braced, in order to achieve the intended operational requirement, there is an operational plan that is attached that comes with the NPC 4D report. So this operational plan is the key part of the strategy of bracing. So without it, we cannot review the NPC 4D evaluation. So the operational plan is all about continuous operation. How can we achieve facility-wide continuous operation by looking at things more detailed? So the operational plan should not be just prepared by design professional. It should be owner approved, and the owners should be truly heavily involved in the strategy of operational plan. So it looks at where to brace it so that you get that functionality, and maybe where not to brace it so that you have some alternative manners for that functionality, which I will come to that one. Again, we are looking at keeping the facility operational. The code also says that, okay, when you are submitting this, make sure that you include executive summary, narrative, management of utilities, etc., etc. The operational plan portion, we publish it on our website. Couple suggestions on the operational plans, since we have seen quite a bit of those. Please do not include sensitive information in the operational plan. We publish those, so do not give your staff phone numbers on your operational plans. So please clean those up.
It looks like we may be experiencing some difficulty with the audio. Give us just a few minutes. We'll try and get it back on. Thank you.
All right. We just switched computers. There's just froze on us. So I'm going to bring up the presentation on a different computer. So just give me 1 second. And let's see. All right. Show screen. Just one more second. Okay, let's try this again. So I'm not going to start from the beginning, obviously. Okay, so, all right. We were at the operational plan. Suggestions. Okay, so it is acceptable to provide two PDF files. One talks about the comprehensive for review. The other one is more reduced for publication on our website. So it's okay to not show the shut-off valve locations in the public version for security reasons, so that we understand the some other concerns. So just let us know. Okay, NPC 4D level 1. Quickly, if I go through that, if you have a general acute care building, let me put my laser pointer back up. There are NPC 3 areas, and you have a CUP building, central utility plant, and other buildings that is on the way. Bracing these NPC 3 areas for level 1 is the minimum requirement. Now, level 2 and 3 are optional, depending on how you want to strategize your facility operation. So some buildings may end up with level 2 or 3, but it's a strategy. One thing that we keep seeing is the design professionals focusing on just the general acute care building that they are contracted to, but NPC 3 and 4D also requires the source equipment to be braced. So there needs to be some survey of where the utilities, where the sources are coming from, and most of the time it's just a central utility plant somewhere. So some panels and some mechanical rooms, electrical rooms, so those are all need to be braced. Level 2 is about from source to the NPC 3 areas, and these lines are all braced. So basically what we are trying to make sure is that these areas will function reasonably after an earthquake. Now, the other blue areas may not quite function because the utility lines from source to here is not braced. So when it comes to elevators, level 2, my God, level 2 requires, again, it's kicking me out. Interesting. Never had this before. But we'll manage. Okay, here we go. Okay, so level 2, when it comes to elevator, you need to select certain elevators to upgrade. Again, operational plan is required. Now, this is something that we use quite a bit. something what we call level 1 plus. So it's something in between level 1 and level 2. So just think of two NPC 3 areas right here. And let's say you are bracing from source to that area. So you are basically ensuring functionality here. But this one, you have an alternative somewhere else. So you say, okay, so I don't want to spend resources, money to this one because I have a good alternative in another building. So I'm not going to brace the utilities from here to the source. So which means that the critical care areas or the NPC 3 areas are not all braced. So your rating is still level 1, but your operational plan gets a whole lot easier. So there's this surgical approach that you can do to optimize what you can upgrade. And again, there's no such thing in the code that says plus. It's just a strategy between 1 and 2. Okay, level 3 is basically level 2 with more areas that you choose. So the rules are the same. So there's really nothing new there. NPC 4 is, like I mentioned, it is bracing pretty much everything, architectural, mechanical, electrical equipment, and so on and so forth. One common questions that we got is NPC 3 area exceptions. So those exceptions don't apply to NPC 4s for upgrade. And most of the time, there are a lot of past projects in the building that you can take credit for. So just think of like you have a map, you have a bunch of areas that are already explored and upgraded. So it's just a matter of finding gaps between those past projects and focus on those. But please do make sure that those projects that were started in the past were closed in compliance. If the status of those projects are closed without compliance, you cannot take credit, or you need, if you want to know how much was finished in those projects, you need to go a little more document route to see what happened in the past. For NPC4, the nice thing is operational plan is not required, because if you brace everything in the building, the expectation is reasonably there will be function. But again, no one is guaranteeing 100% everything will work. It's just this is a reasonable assumption. Okay, now people say, is it really bracing everything in the building? Well, there are some exceptions in NPC4. And I'll just highlight a couple things. When something is attached to an architectural item, such as walls, people say, okay, should I upgrade all the light frame walls? The exception here is when a 250 pounds is attached to light frame walls, and if a single stud gets 250, then you need to upgrade that stud. So, and 250 per single stud is a very big piece of equipment attached to the wall. So this doesn't happen frequently. So, so the focus of upgrading the light frame walls is pretty minimal. And then there are some other things like, hey, you know, if I put a 3,000 pound equipment, how much evaluation, how much more should I go? And it's pretty actually flexible on how much you should go. So it's everything, but not really everything. Okay, now with the rating systems that I all mentioned, where are we on the building inventory across California? So this is our latest pie chart, which is about a couple of weeks old. The SPC, the structural performance, so we have 655 SPC2 buildings and 38 SPC1 buildings. So these need to be resolved before 2030. This SPC1s are being resolved as we speak. 3, 4, 4D, 5, these are actually good beyond 2030. So these are the structural, the good structural buildings. When it comes to non-structural, the picture is different. So we have NPC 5, 244. This is growing actually pretty rapidly with the evaluations and upgrades that are being happening. NPC 4 is the pie slice is getting much bigger lately. 4D is probably accelerating the most, and you're gonna see a whole lot more movement on getting the 4Ds. 3, it's still, we have 246 of them, and almost half of our inventory is NPC2. So this is the pie slice that requires anchorage or more careful consideration. Luckily, we do not have NPC1 anymore. Where can you find this information? So the best place to go is this link, this website. So you will find not only SPC, NPC, but lots of other details about your facility and buildings. So we add new tabs every, I don't know, every year. But some tabs have been there for decades or a decade or two. So facility info, building list, seismic info. So these are the most used tabs for NPC 4D building operational plan, and later the newest edition is building compliance plan, which I will touch on this presentation a little bit. But please go to the previous presentation to learn more about the building compliance plan. Okay, so if you click on the building list seismic information, this is what you see. I want to focus on one column, but in this table, again, you're going to see the building details, the name, the year, the code, the height, and the rating. But we keep updating, well, many things, but this NPC status really talks to what we are trying to achieve with this presentation. This gives the status of the NPC upgrade. Now, you may say, okay, what do these things mean? Like there's some text. So I basically broke it down. So let's take a look at options here. So if the NPC status shows not submitted, basically it's pretty straightforward. The evaluation, we have not received the evaluation report. So if you think that this is a mistake on our website, please do reach out to us. So we will fix our mistake. But if it is not submitted, it shows not submitted. Awaiting review means that the report was submitted or resubmitted for back check and is queued for review. If it says in review, which means that it got triaged in so that it has the right components and documents in it, now it's in review. If it says review completed, it means that we sent the comments out. So please respond to the comments. If you see proposed retrofit acceptable, then it means that we received the evaluation and we accepted the scope. We sent a letter saying that we are accepting the proposed retrofit. And the next step is basically now putting together the construction documentation and build it. So if you see intent to remove general acute care, GAC, then it means that we received a letter, formal letter from the facility saying that they are intending not to continue general acute care services in this building after 2030. So we put this building in a different category, which I will talk about that later. You may say, okay, that's great to look at facility by facility, but I don't want to click 100 times. So is there a list that I can download everything? Yes, there is. And this is the link. And for all 400 plus facilities, NPC, SPC status, and more are in this link. So if you go to our website, Seismic Compliance and Safety, you're gonna see a link that shows everything. So 3,000 something building status is there. It's a PDF, and you may say, well, PDF is I need Excel. Well, the way that we created this PDF from Excel, so if you save this PDF as Excel file, it will convert to Excel file very cleanly. So it's by design. So anyways, you can sort, you can do all kinds of statistics if you want to. All right, so now we know the rules, now we know the inventory, what are the deadlines? So I want to start with NPC 3 compliance deadlines. I know that this is a 4D and 4 more towards that, but we still have a little NPC 3 compliance deadline issue. We have 2 seismic design categories, seismic design category D and F. F is very high seismic area, D is high seismic area. There is a deadline, there was a deadline that says all the NPC 1s and 2s need to be 3 by this date if you are seismic design category F. So out of 43 NPC 2 buildings, we have 40 NPC 2 buildings with this deadline. Now, about 24 of those, they are done. They are in the process of basically getting the paperwork resolved. So my target is 16 buildings in 9 facilities. That needs action immediately. So if you haven't heard from us, that means that you are not in that list. If you did, you know. Okay, the other deadlines. For the NPC 4, 4D, and 5, the NPC compliance deadlines have been set for a long time ago. But recently, in 2025 code, with the addition of AB 869 and the California Administrative Code revisions, there were like 2 little additions in between. One, well, the first one, let me start with that. January 1st, 2024, that's the submittal of non-structural evaluation deadline for all hospitals. So there's no change there. For January 1st, 2025, if you are seeking extension under the AB 869, that was the deadline for non-structural evaluation report. With the 2025 California Administrative Code actually becoming effective in a few days, this is doing this again, that kicking me out. Let me go back again. So by March or by January 1st, 2026, all facilities need to submit a seismic compliance plan. So again, please take a look at the previous webinar. By March 1st, 2026, all hospitals, whether you are seeking delay or not, all hospitals need to submit construction documents by March 1st, 2026 for NPC 4, 4D, and 5. By March 1st, 2028, that's the deadline to obtain a building permit. And for the ones that are not AB 869, finishing date is January 1st, 2030. And whatever the extension that the AB 869 facilities get, that will be their deadline to finish the construction. So you may say, well, why January went to March? Because most people, we are a deadline-driven industry. Most people submit at the last day or the day before. So January 1st is generally not a good time because everyone is on vacation. So when things are needed, bringing the design professional from a Christmas vacation is not fun. Okay. reporting NPC compliance to HCI. So those are the deadlines, but how can we keep track and report these deadlines are met or not met? So we will do all of those in our new automated seismic compliance plan. So again, I highly recommend to look at the previous webinar. The way that we will be asking everybody is, please do put the NPC milestones in the seismic compliance plan for 4D and 5, and your time of submitting the construction documents, your time of getting permit and completing. We're going to be asking you to put all that in the seismic compliance plan. So how do you do it? Basically, you use our guide. This is an ESP e-services portal user guide, section 21. Basically, this walks you through step by step on how to log in, access, use the menus. So this is more like a software user guide. And we publish pin 80, so you can look at the background behind it. But for this webinar, I'm gonna focus on how to input the NPC compliance deadlines into this seismic compliance plan. For SPC related deadlines, it will be the April 2nd webinar, so please attend to that. But for NPC, this is how you do it. There are two tables in the seismic compliance plan. One talks about what you're gonna do for each building. Like, for example, this cancer research. Are you gonna demolish the building, replace the services? Are you gonna do SPC, NPC, retrofit, and all that? So it's a pretty straightforward drop down. It basically asks, what's the big plan? The second table is more about the details of each building. Again, a predetermined drop down. So I would basically focus on the bottom part of the drop down, which talks about more about the NPCs. So we pre-populated these so that you can basically select those and put a date. And when you complete it, you can put completed or in progress or not started. And if we have comments, you're going to see the comments right next to each item. So if we say, well, this hasn't been submitted, so on and so forth. So it's very straightforward. So, and if you have any questions, let us know. So that's all it is on the seismic compliance plan for NPC 445 reporting. Again, I basically noted down how we're gonna do this. Then there's a little nuance on 4, 4D, and 5. For 4D, each building has its own plan. So some upgrade to 4D, some upgrade to 4, some demolish it. So it's building by building. When it comes to NPC 5, it's more a campus-wide approach. So if you are putting a big sewer tank outside, that will make everything NPC 5 after every building is done with 4 or 4D. So repeating the NPC 5 project submittal on each building will just take up a lot of time, and it's just unnecessary repetition. So we are basically saying that please put it in one of the simple building that you're not going to put too many milestones. It can be, again, kick me out. We'll have a IT talk. There we go. Okay. So you can choose a simple building like canopies and shed, and you can put the NPC 5 dates there. And when you do that, the system will recognize that, oh, there's an entry of NPC 5, so that we will assume that this is for the entire facility, which generally is. Okay, so now I'm gonna start going into the details of NPC 4 and 4D. I'll talk about some nuances, some frequently asked questions. So we'll basically touch on, again, a lot of nuances here. One thing that I would start with is the big picture of the building. So the older the building it gets, the more scope of work that needs to happen. So we have categories. So the best place to start is to figure out, okay, how old is the building? What was the permit year of the building? What was the construction year of the building? So start with the age. So, and when you start with the age, the very important thing to identify is who was the permitting agency. Was it local, like city jurisdiction, local jurisdiction, or was it OSA, which is the agency right, or kind of OSHPD, and then we split from OSA and we became OSHPD. Was it under the OSA jurisdiction, or was it under our jurisdiction? So when, again, if it was under our jurisdiction, depending on the year, the scope gets very minimal or nothing. And then as you go towards local, the scope gets more. So prior to 1973, pretty much we don't allow self-declaration, and self-declaration, I'll come to that in the later one. Equipment and inventory is required, distribution system required, fire sprinkler required, calculations and testing may be required. So look at the exceptions. If it is after 1973, all the way to 1982, 82 is when the OSHPD became OSHPD. So this is the OSA era. So again, we don't allow self-declaration. Basically, this is a letter from the facility saying that everything is done. So I'll come to that in the next line, but we don't allow that. And the rest is very similar to local, but calculations and testing is limited. When it comes to OSHPD jurisdiction, all the way to 1994, almost 1996, the only scope is about fire sprinklers. So we still require a self-declaration, which is 3 statements. One, everything is done under OSHPD permit. No unpermitted work happened. And this kicked me out again. And fire sprinklers are per 1994 edition. So again, this era, the fire sprinklers weren't quite designed for what we know today. So there's some upgrade needed in this era. If you are after 1994 and the fire sprinklers are 1994 NFPA 13 designed, then you have no scope of upgrade in 4 and 4D. You still have NPC 5 to do, but again, this is not about bracing. So take a look at the footnotes for this. But again, it's very important to start with the age. The reports, once the evaluation is done, it's important to summarize what's the scope of work. Like, what are we trying to upgrade? So the engineer knows, but it's sometimes very difficult to track how what's truly needed. So the code says, a narrative and a summary table is required, but after seeing many evaluation reports, we started commenting saying that you gotta have a summary table that everyone can follow. So we basically came up with a template. So we are strongly recommending to include a template, summary template at the first page. Again, we are here today, we won't be here tomorrow. Your engineer may not be here tomorrow. So to keep track of what has been done, the summary tables are super important. So we came up with a summary template. So you can click on this link and download it if you choose to. So I'll just go a little. I'll explain this table a little bit because it's important. So this is the building that you are looking at. It's a general acute care building, and there's a building right next to it, which we call pass-through building, and then this is a source building. Essentially, this is a plant or wherever the source equipment is. So for NPC 4, which is basically the whole building, the entire building, we look at, okay, tell us if things are compliant above ceiling, tell us if equipment is compliant below ceiling, elevators, and flex utility connection. So these are kind of our 4 categories to summarize. So under this, there's like subcategories, and tell us, in few words, is retrofit required? Is just give us some tidbits. And for the MEP equipment, again, tell us the big picture. If you go much, if you try to break this whole building down into many components, then you are defeating the purpose. Just tell the owner and us that, okay, there's nothing that needs to be done. This is compliant. It's good. So our focus will be hung equipment, for example. So we can look at all the details in the report later on. It's just we want to know the big ticket items in this summary table. And same for source equipment, if what's the status of that one. NPC 4D level 1 summary table is a little different than NPC 4. So again, some similar items, but the now you are not talking about the entire building in terms of bracing. You are now talking about areas within the building and the source equipment within wherever those source equipment are. So again, give us the details on what the plan is, so that when you go, for example, when you go to this building in the future for hung equipment, if you open a project and if you finish the retrofit, then you can come back and say, yep, this item is done under this project. So now it becomes compliant. Well, okay, you still have those 2 items that we need to see projects for. So it kind of starts basically addressing things on a more high level. NPC 4D level 2 and 3 summary table, again, is a little different than NPC 1. Again, you can download the templates here. So I want to just quickly talk about the setup here. So you have the source building, you have a pass-through building, you have seismic joints, and you have NPC 3 areas, additional areas, elevators. So these are basically surveyed. So these are utilities to be braced. So, okay, how are we gonna prepare a summary table for that? Again, I'm gonna start with the bottom line. The source equipment, tell us which building it is in. Tell us where the utilities will be passing through, because those are the buildings that you will have projects. and utilities in passing, again, another passing through building, and this is your main building. If you identify these, then you can actually start checking these things off as you make progress. The reason that we are emphasizing in pass-through buildings is NPC projects come with many little multiple projects. So it's very easy to keep or lose track of the focus. So when you have many little TI projects that are touching many different parts of the area, then you may start actually, well, did I do this pass-through building or not? So anyways, this is something helpful. If you have better suggestions, we are open to look at it. All we are trying to do is make the scope and tracking easier. Okay, what about the operational plan summary table? Again, here's the link for the template. We'd like this to go to the front of the operational plan. So we kind of divided into the code described service categories: basic clinical services, support services, supplemental services, other services. So we just listed functions, mostly aligns with the AB 1882 reporting. So just tell us in the building that you are looking at, which services are in that building, and what's the plan for those functions. Like you can go functional, reduced functional, or you are basically strategizing to provide this sterile processing in another, maybe a newer tower that you built recently. So then we'll say, okay, then all we need is the NPC3 area bracing, not source to source to the area. So again, this kind of gives us a big picture on how you're approaching your functionality. Okay, how am I doing with time? I'm gonna go through few more slides because we lost a few minutes during the technical difficulty. So I'm gonna just go through those. Operational plan, again, does it have to be included in the evaluation report? The answer is yes. Can we submit it later? The answer is no. Now, right after that, we get a follow-up question. Okay, I'm gonna give you the operational plan, but can I submit it later with the revisions? The answer is yes, you can submit it because, again, the things change, the strategies change. So it's, this is driving me crazy when it is kicking me out. Okay, going back. So you can resubmit the plan for approval. So again, your plans may change. It's okay. Just let us know. If it is a minor change, obviously you don't have to. You can just accumulate the changes and then submit it when it makes sense. But that's what we recommend. Okay. This is a big question. The next two are the big questions. All right, let me first explain the question. So we have a facility with lots of buildings, and I am focusing on this building, and I have NPC3 areas in this building. Now, the NPC3 area, let's say I have an ICU and I have a radiology, let's say. Well, for the radiology, I have a plan because this building has radiology department, maybe not the same size, but some alternative that is in this building. So basically we say, okay, radiology is acceptable to have the alternate location so that you don't have to from, you don't have to brace from source to this area. But what about ICU? So ICU, the question says this is exclusive to this building. Then you have no alternative to that service. So if you shut down that, it's not acceptable. That's not continuous operation. So we will ask for that ICU to brace from source to the ICU. So you still get level 1 because you're not bracing from source to radiology. You get level 1. So what I mentioned in the past, level 1 plus is kind of the approach here. But if there's no ICU, if there's only radiology, then yeah, sure. There's radiology here. Level 1 is acceptable. So we just move on. What if I have the same facility and I want to do level 1 on every single one of them? So what we started seeing, which we are pushing back, is, this building will have the services somewhere else. This building has services somewhere else. This building has services somewhere else. This building will have services somewhere else. So the entire facility cannot be NPC 4D level 1. So you cannot just keep the services out of this building within the same campus. The argument that we keep seeing is, we're going to shut down the facility. And there's another facility probably within, I don't know, X number of miles. Again, an evacuation is the last resort option, not a design target. So we are designing the facility to provide services after the earthquake. So therefore, all buildings in the facility cannot be NPC 4D level 1. Okay, what is the minimum number of elevators? So for level 2 and level 3, a minimum of 1 elevator. Again, this is a pretty basic requirement. So that hasn't changed. And the other question that we get quite often is, okay, I have a central utility plant. There's no inpatient services in it. So is that can I do level 1? So which means that these equipment, for example, they will be anchored, but all the utilities above will not be anchored. So obviously the operational plan, it will say the entire facility will be shut down because the central utility plants are so critical of the facility. Not functioning central utility plant is basically detrimental. So rather than going back and forth many times on the operational plan, we are basically getting to the point saying that central utility plants as a standalone buildings need to be NPC 4. Means that please brace everything in those buildings. Again, the code doesn't say central utility plants has to be NPC 4, but the code says that your operational plan needs to ensure continuous functionality. So not bracing central utility plant defeats the purpose of operational plan. So again, cutting the chase, central utility plant needs to be NPC 4. Now, what about mechanical and electrical rooms that are like in a building, in a patient tower? So first of all, as engineer or architect, the design professional of record, you should be advising your client to absolutely anchor those, because without those, your functionality will go down. Not only that, I would also advise, by looking at the functions of those rooms, to brace the piping coming out of it. So again, those rooms, the pipe sizes get pretty small pretty quickly. So you will get into exempt category
I don't know, within yards of the equipment rooms. So anyway, something that should be brought up to the client so that they know what they are getting by bracing or not bracing these rooms. We are not requiring the whole patient tower to be NPC 4 because of an equipment room, but we want you to look at that surgically to make sure that those things are taken care of. So the patient tower may get NPC 4D level 1, 2, 3. But again, the emphasis should be there for mechanical and electrical rooms. Let's take a 5-minute break and then we'll continue. So, yeah, so let's be back 11:10. Thank you.